was a required grain offering, not a voluntary one. A voluntary grain offering was a joyful offering of one in good standing with God. The 5. 11-13 to one who sinned unintentionally against holy things of Jehovah, for example, one who unwittingly appropriated grain set aside as tithe to the sanctuary, and used it for himself or his household for a common use, profaning the sanctified thing. La 5. 15a. Compare La 22. 14-16. Compensation plus 1/5 was to be given to the sanctuary. The 5. 16 a ram was presented as a guilt offering. The 5. 15-3 a person who unwittingly did something probably through negligence that Jehovah commanded not to be done. A ram according to the estimated value was to be offered. The 5. 17-19 for a person who deceived his associate by taking valuables committed to his care, robbery, defrauding, keeping something found and lying about it. 6. 2-3. Compare X22. 7-13, and note that this does not include testifying falsely against one's fellow man, as at 5. 20. First, confession of the wrong was to be made. Then he must make full compensation, plus 1/5, to the injured person. The 6. 4-5. New 5. 6-7 if the wronged person had died, the nearest male relative got the compensation. If there was no near relative, the priest received it. New 5. 8 then he was to offer a ram for his guilt offering. Grain offerings. Grain offerings were made along with communion offerings, burnt offerings, and sin offerings, and also as first fruits. At other times they were made independently. X29. 40-42. La 23. 10-13, 15-18. New 15. 8, 9, 22-24. 28. 9, 10, 20, 26-28. Chap 29 These were in recognition of God's bounty in supplying blessings and prosperity. They were often accompanied by oil and frankincense. Grain offerings could be in the form of fine flour, roasted grain, or ring-shaped cakes or wafers that were baked, griddle cooked, or from the deep fat kettle. Some of the grain offering was put on the altar of burnt offering, some was eaten by the priests, and in communion offerings the worshipper partook. The 6. 14-23. 7. 11-13. New 18. 8-11 None of the grain offerings presented on the altar could contain leaven or honey, apparently referring to the syrup of figs or juice of fruits that might ferment. La 2. 1-16. Drink offerings. Drink offerings were presented along with most of the other offerings, especially after the Israelites had settled in the Promised Land. New 15. 2, 5, 8-10 This consisted of wine intoxicating liquor and was poured out on the altar. New 28. 7, 14. Compare X30. 9. New 15. 10. The Apostle Paul wrote to the Christians at Philippi, "If I am being poured out like a drink offering upon the sacrifice and public service to which faith has led you, I am glad." Here he used the figure of a drink offering, expressing his willingness to expend himself in behalf of fellow Christians. PHP 2. 17 Shortly before his death, he wrote to Timothy, "I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the due time for my releasing is imminent." 2T4. 6. Wave offerings. In the wave offerings the priest evidently put his hands under the hands of the worshipper, who was holding the sacrifice to be presented, and waved them to and fro. Or the thing offered was waved by the priest himself. La 23. 11a It seems that Moses, as mediator of the law covenant, did this for Aaron and his sons when consecrating them to the priesthood. La 8. 28, 29 This action represented a presenting of the sacrificial things to Jehovah. Certain wave offerings went to the priests as their portion. X29. 27. The presentation of a sheaf or omer measure o text to a acute muritra longo. Jehovah's law given to Israel prohibited the making of images for worship. The true God is a spirit, and the making of any image to represent him is grossly inappropriate. In contrast, many images of the gods of other ancient nations have been unearthed. They were nothing more than the product of the hands of man, wood and stone. 28 They were valueless gods, as the Bible says, having neither eyes to see nor ears to hear those who worship them. 1 Ch 16. 26. PS 115. 4-8 Today they are merely museum relics. Nevertheless, they reveal much about the roots of religious beliefs that are widespread today. Gods of the nation's religious triads began in Babylon. This stone tablet portrays a shrine of the Babylonian sun god Shamash, along with symbols of one such triad. The moon for the god Sin, the sun for Shamash, and a star for Ishtar-Shah, the chief god of the Assyrians, is portrayed on this ancient seal as having 3 heads above the wings. The Egyptians worshipped triads such as these. Top. Horus, Osiris, and Isis. Right. Isis, Horus, Nothis much like Christendom's Madonna and Child, Egypt's mother-son image Isis.